thank you so much for making your way over here. We know that learning and teaching doesn't stop for Learning and Teaching Week. In fact, I had a little moment this morning as I was putting up the signs, and I'm thinking, I wonder what the students think that, you know, there's all these signs that say that it's Learning and Teaching Week, because when isn't it Learning and Teaching Week at a university? And I guess that's my main point to make today, is that every day and every week is Learning and Teaching Week at Bond, and that it gives all of us, no measure of pride so much as to say, you know, that this is Australia's #1 student learning experience university. And I just came back from a week in Adelaide at the Deans of Arts, Social Sciences and Humanities Conference, and that reputation is definitely nationally known, and lots of people want to talk about how we do what we do, and then they say they can't do it because they're too big. But you know, it's the pride of knowing that we really give that personalized learning experience to each and every one of our students. And so this week, more than anything else, is to give that same personalized experience back to our staff, and to say we're so grateful to you for all of the hard work that you do, and want to celebrate together and build that even further amongst one another. So I better stop taking Keitha's whole presentation away, because I'm not supposed to be presenting. I forgot to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, and I can't wait to get to know you further this week, I'm Shelley Kanash, and I'm the Director of Learning and Teaching here at Bond. And as I'm sure that you've heard, Linda and Kirsty Mitchell and I, as well as a wealth of others, ran a national research program last year, and we're still actively working on that project now. We have a number of universities from across the country inviting us over to do things for their staff in terms of how to embed employability throughout the curriculum. We know that the Career Development Center can't do it all by themselves, and that we need to all work together and really put that focus to achieve our mission of globally relevant careers. And then we have the Spotlight on Health Sciences and Medicine, where they're going to share not only for the HSM staff and academics, but for all of us, what are the key things that they've learned that we can incorporate and adapt into our own day-to-day practice. And then following, using ETVALs to improve learning and teaching. So if the students just fill out those surveys and they just go into a filing cabinet somewhere, that's not going to do us a whole heck of a lot of good. This is really a fantastic opportunity for us to get that feedback from the students, to find out what's working for them, what's not working for them. And this session really focuses, along with Danielle Wright from PPS, on how to interpret that. How do we analyze that? Which points do we pay attention to? And what do we do about it? What actions do we take? And how do we communicate those actions back to the students? So we've got lots of interesting things planned for you today, and we invite you to spend lots of time with us here in the Princeton room. And now I'll get off the stage and introduce Professor Keitha Dunston, who is our wonderful Pro-Vice Chancellor of Learning and Teaching, and making all kinds of incredible things happen for us and with us here at Bond. So Keitha.
Well, it's my very great pleasure to be here to actually open our new and revamped and refreshed Learning and Teaching Week here at Bond. Certainly would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay our respects to elders past and future on this wonderful campus that we have here. So Shelley's already mentioned part of the purposes of Learning and Teaching Week, but to me, I think at the heart of it is about celebrating each other and actually congratulating each other for the wonderful things that we've already we achieved in the learning and teaching space, and then also to have that development aspect as well, because we have the opportunity to learn from each other, because there are so many great things that have been happening. And I guess just to sort of name a few, and I've got my notes here, but hopefully you already know that for the past 3 years in the Australian graduate study, for the past 3 years, Bond University has been ranked #1 in the country, and in fact in the past 5 years we've been ranked #1 for 4 of those 5 years, and there was only one university that pipped us in 1 year 4 years ago. So it's a great achievement. That means our graduates are appreciating the quality of teaching and the experience that they've had here at Bond University. But we can't rest on our laurels, because one of the challenges of being rated the best at something is that you actually have to stay the best at that. And I'd have to say other universities aren't necessarily standing flat-footed in this space, particularly with the spectre of deregulation occurring, and the fact that other universities in the future may very well be charging fees that are similar to ours. They too are very interested about improving not only their learning and teaching, but also the students' perceptions of the quality of that learning and teaching. So we've got a head start, if you like, and we've got an advantage, and we've got a beautiful campus, we've got committed staff, we've got small classes, lots of things are in our favour, but we do actually have to continue that. We can't just say, oh, that's great, everything's fine. We actually do have to focus on our continuing development. Some of our other more recent achievements over the past 2 years, as you would know, we actually had our staff receiving 7 OLT citations, and we actually had the ceremony last week in Brisbane where 3 of our staff received their OLT citations for outstanding contributions to teaching. And just a nice statistic to put out there that they told us on the evening is of the 90 OLT citations that were awarded during this year, 30 of them were actually awarded in Queensland. So not only is Bond leading the space, but Queensland is leading the space, which is a nice team to have, and may as well put a NRL plug in here for a great grand final next week. So there's lots of reasons to be a proud Queenslander at this point in time. We also, over the 2 years, were successful in gaining 2 new OLT research grants, and I guess another notable achievement this year is our 2013 commission project was in fact complete, and I guess congratulations to Shelley and her team for the great work that they have done with that project, and that has again received a lot of notation from around the country, where we've been congratulated on our contributions to student employability in that space. So just to talk a little bit more about Bond, and I guess what I'm going to mention now is really an extract from when we had our strategic planning day, and I was talking about what we needed to do in the learning space and what was in fact unique to Bond, and what are the things that we actually have to nurture and protect. And I suppose the first one is a culture of teaching excellence where academics of international standing bring a wealth of industry experience and in-depth knowledge of learning and teaching, best practice and technologies to the classroom. So to me, the important part of that is this culture of excellence in this learning and teaching space, and everything that we need to do, and I'm talking about myself as the Pro-Vice Chancellor of Learning and Teaching, but also the Office of Learning and Teaching, all that we have to do to actually support the continuation and the development of that excellence, and indeed the recognition of excellence, which is largely what this week is about. The second point, that we have innovative teaching methods and technology-enhanced world-class curriculum. So as you'd be aware, it's been a very strong priority of the Office of Learning and Teaching, and in fact it's one of the actions under the Bond University Strategic Plan is to further our use of technology. At the moment in the Strategic Plan it talks about blended learning, but we've quite deliberately in the Office of Learning and Teaching kind of nuanced that to talk about technology-enhanced learning and teaching, partially because, as you know, we were involved for quite a period of time to actually try and work out, well, what do we think blended learning means? And then once we even work out that, then what's blended learning mean for Bond? So it was sort of a loaded term that means different things to different people. So I think by talking about technology enhancement, then it is okay if those enhancements are different things to different people, because it doesn't all have to be the same. And I think that's one of the key things that we have found during this journey. But a lot of the work that the Office of Learning and Teaching has been doing in the past 2 years has been about supporting academic staff in enhancing their classroom experiences for students with technology. The third point, a high-quality learning environment that enhances the student experience and student learning. For those of you that aren't aware, we have been very busy in our learning teaching spaces area. In the third semester of 2014, we piloted the Outdoor Learning Project, and thank you for all of those of you here who may have been involved in that project. But one of the things we found out, and perhaps it shouldn't be a surprise, but both our staff and students love our environment of Bond University and love the opportunity to actually be out in the great outdoors, if you like. But the challenges to us is to actually have outdoor spaces that are suitable for learning and teaching. And so part of what we've been doing this year is developing those purpose-built outdoor spaces, and we now have 3 new spaces, and there are more spaces coming. Another key aspect of that development is within the Faculty of Society and Design. In the semester just past, the architecture students had an elective subject which they could take, and the requirements for that elective subject was that they did surveys and designed or picked what they thought would be suitable spaces for outdoor pavilions. So I guess I call them indoor-outdoor spaces. So they're still outdoor, but they actually have a waterproof and have a ceiling and have power and are a little bit more permanent. So they were picking spaces, and they were in fact put forward some prototypes and designs of what those outdoor pavilions might look like. And as a result of that, while none of the 5 proposals that were put forward were adopted in full, we actually have adopted aspects of 2 of those, and there will now be another subject that is offered by FSD next year where another class of students will actually fully develop that to a proposal where we might actually have an outdoor pavilion that can be built. And the benefit of that is actually not only having a great outdoor space that's more multi-purpose because it can be used on rainy days, but that our students will actually be helping to build the campus. And what a great legacy to have as a student, to have known that you've contributed something and left behind something. And it worked, talking to 20-year-olds and so, and I was saying, well, you'll be able to bring back your grandchildren, and they all laughed at me, and I said, don't worry, it's not going to be too far away. It sneaks up on you very quickly, so that's a great thing there. With the indoor teaching spaces, we have had an audit of all of our indoor teaching spaces, and for the academics in the room, I'm not telling you anything in the sense of that there are some classrooms, and if you happen to be timetabled in them, there's a big, oh no, not the poll room, not the dungeon, not whatever else we tend to call some of our less favourable teaching spaces. So what we're actually doing is developing and improving our teaching spaces, actually having teaching spaces that are designed to suit the pedagogy that is actually going into the classrooms. So for those of you that do want to deliver in a more flexible format, having group setting, classrooms will be available. For those of you that do want to have tables and desks, those will be available. And for those of you that do want to continue using theaterette, phasing out those horrible flip chairs to something that's a little bit more comfortable and more useful for students. So all of that is happening. In conjunction of that is the University Learning and Teaching Committee is working on a lecture capture policy, but what will actually be happening is the lecture rooms that are available for booking for lectures will all have the capacity to audio capture the lecture. So there will still be some spaces that have the video capture as we have at the moment, but for the majority of spaces it will be sound and screen capture. So what will be recorded for students will be whatever is said in the classroom, the mics are all focusing at the instructor, but if you're having some discussions, the types of mics we're using will also pick up audience discussion, maybe not perfectly, but a little bit there, as well as what will be going on the screen. So we will have that available, and so from the student satisfaction point of view, they have been pushing very hard to have more subjects that actually do have availability of lecture capture. Another improvement to the classrooms will be, and we haven't again quite worked out which brand we're using and so on, but electronic whiteboards. And on my wish list, and we've got ITS scratching their heads at the moment, but they're working on it, is electronic whiteboards that are again linked to the lecture capture, so that whatever you write on the whiteboard is also recorded, so that when the student is playing back the audio of the lecture, they can see everything you've projected on the screen as well as everything you've written on your electronic whiteboard. It's a touch screen. Again, on our wish list is that will actually be networked, but that might be a little bit more of a challenge, but we're working on that space. But nonetheless, we sometime during the next year, again, where it's appropriate, all of those teaching spaces will have those kinds of electronic whiteboards. So we are looking at some significant improvements there. The next point is our support of graduate employability through teaching discipline-specific knowledge, skills and attributes, as well as embedding overall graduate attributes through our, what was then new university core, but our core has now been in place a little over a year, so I don't think we can call it new anymore. And in fact, in first semester of next year, we will have our first graduates who arrived when the new core was fully implemented, including Beyond Bond, will be graduating for the first time first semester of next year. We have had some students graduate with Beyond Bond at the present, and they were the students that volunteered to opt in. But as I said, 161 graduates will be our first, if you like, conscripts into the new core, and we're looking forward to sort of those exciting outcomes there as well. And I guess the last point that I'll mention here is overall, and it's probably our overall providing criteria, is a personalised education experience of the highest international standards that is quality assured and learning analytics where students' feedback is nurtured and valued. So that kind of touches on one of the things that Shelley mentioned a little as well. But again, the University Learning and Teaching Committee is working on a policy relating to transparency to student feedback. So how do we actually make a promise and a commitment to students that we actually care about the feedback that they give us, and how do we signal to them that we actually use it? So that's one of the things that we're working on in that space. And of course, we've had some, along the way, some improvements to our electronic TVEL. And I suppose just one last point, as a general point I'd like to mention, is our overall commitment to the scholarship of learning and teaching. We can't hold ourselves out as being the best teaching university in the country if we're not also participating in the research and the future development space. We just wouldn't be credible. So we do have to support our academics in their development of their research in this area, and indeed just their general scholarship in this area. And again, the Office of Learning and Teaching does a lot in the support of gaining research grants to, again, further that research agenda.